Hello again from my front porch. Today I want to talk about something that's a little more serious than the normal topics that I kind of just prattle on about, and that is the concept of hate, or specifically hate for the sake of hate. And what I mean by that is I'm deeply troubled by what I see as this ever-increasing level of justification for people hating other people. And in my opinion, mostly unjustified. Because here's what I mean, and I'm going to use this as an example. Don't jump ahead of me and think that I'm defending or promoting anything. But right now, people who wear those red Donald Trump hats, the Make America Great hats, the MAGA hats as they call them, those people are vilified. Now, I'm not defending. I don't own one of those hats. I never wear one of those hats. I'm not defending the people do. What I'm saying, though, is what about that person warrants hate? Well, they're wearing a hat that identifies them as a supporter of Donald Trump, and I hate Donald Trump. Well, why do you hate Donald Trump? Well, because I hate him. Really, you actually hate Donald Trump. Okay, maybe you do. I remember when Barack Obama was president. And I had friends that would say, man, I can't stand Barack Obama. I hate Obama. And I would say, really? Why do you hate Obama? And a lot of times the answer would be, I hate everything about him. Really? What specifically? Oh, everything he does, everything he says. And we'd go in that circle, and what I'd really figure out is they couldn't say why they actually hate him. Oh, they might be able to say they didn't like a certain policy he did, or a certain legislative initiative that he promoted, or a certain program that he espoused, or whatever. But none of those are reasons to hate someone. There are reasons to have a strong disagreement and to recognize that you and I are on different pages, but those are not causes for hate. Why would they hate him? Now, honestly, in some cases, I think with Barack Obama, there was an element of racism for some individuals. Not all. I think there were some that genuinely had political disagreement with him that had nothing to do with race. That's totally valid. But some of those who could not articulate why they hated him, there may have been a racial dynamic too. Now, that's not the case with Donald Trump. But still, when I challenge people on why do you say you hate Donald Trump, they will start going into those vague, broad generalities. And in fact, even some of those generalities, I'll then say, really, what's an example of that? And they can't cite the specific examples. Okay, well, now those are distinct individuals in the spotlight. Now let's come back to that person wearing the MAGA hat. What do you know about that person? Oh, I know all that I need to know. They're wearing the red MAGA hat, and that means I hate them. Really? Because of one article of clothing, you can justify hate towards that person. That's awfully extreme. Now, I'm using that because it's a current contemporary example, but there are countless examples throughout history. And I mean, I could start listing them, and this episode would be very long, but just some examples of them. I mean, the most obvious comes to mind is from Nazi Germany, where the mob mentality of hate was used to justify and to even get the population of Germany to turn against the Jews, to see them as the enemy, that they were so horrible, so to be feared, so to be untrusted, that we could justify rounding them up and putting them in concentration camps and ultimately trying to exterminate them. Now, that's an obvious example, but that's not the only example, because you know what? Here in the United States, we did something very similar. We did it to the Japanese Americans. We rounded them up, put them in concentration camps. The Star Trek actor, George Takei, he actually is a son, he was in one of those concentration camps as his family was rounded up. Now, those people were humiliated. They lost their businesses, they lost their homes, and they were rounded up. Why? Because we had this justified mentality of distrust, of hate toward those individuals. And even after that, Senator Joseph McCarthy, successfully launched the whole Red Scare thing, where we were looking for communists through the 50s, and everybody was under suspicion and looking under rocks, and people's lives, reputations, careers, all obliterated because of an accusation that they were a communist. And that went on for way too long before some brave people finally stood up to him and said, enough is enough. This fueling this mob mentality of hatred. I mean, you turn the clock back, we can go all the way back to like the Salem witch trials. Same mentality, where we justify focusing hate toward an individual because of the perceptions that are generated in this mob mentality in which hate for the sake of hate is justified. And you know, another example that comes to mind and is spread out over an unfortunate period of time is the whole founding of organizations like the Ku Klux Klan, where you could actually, well, and slavery itself even for that matter, where we were able to actually justify putting another human being in chains and treating them like a literal animal because somehow we are able to justify the hate for that individual. Now, the hate part really came into play after slavery, after the Emancipation Proclamation, and then you had individuals, especially in the South, who hated those who were black and wanted to make them punish, wanted to make them pay. And so, but still, how do you get reasonable, sensible, intelligent guys to dress up in white robes and hoods and burn crosses in yards and grab another human being and string them up just because of the color of their skin? Because you're able to generate this mob mentality of a hateful reaction based on differences that should not cause that level of hate. Again, lots of examples. I could go on and on. Sadly, too many examples. And now in our nation today, everyone comments about how divided we are, about how sad it is that there just seems to be so much animosity, that everyone seems to be at everyone's throats. Well, part of that is because we have now accepted an all-new generation or an all-new focused mindset of hate. In fact, we also have this towards individuals who are Muslim. Now, it is true that a lot of terrorism that takes place internationally is done by individuals who are radical Islamics, radical Islam. And so, I mean, that is true. That's a reality. And in fact, here just recently, I've been seeing very, very depressing news stories from other countries of where some of these radical Muslims are going in and literally executing hundreds of individuals in areas where Christians are believed to have assembled, even at Christian universities and schools in other countries, because there's this jihad that is focused on those individuals. Now, we don't hear as much about them, unfortunately, in our news media, but that's in some ways probably just as well, because there is, here in the United States especially, there is this irrational hatred toward all Muslims because of the actions of those individuals. And if we had those reports made more publicly known, it would accentuate that and fuel that even more. But we have the same thing happening towards legal gun owners. There are millions of individuals in the United States who own guns legally, and none of them are a single problem. But there are sadly a handful of individuals who pop up throughout the year that will use a firearm for tragedy, causing loss of life to others. And when those things happen, there is this hatred towards people who own a gun or who want that to remain a legal option. Why? Well, because we have this mob mentality that we can justify hating anyone who has a gun, anyone who supports a gun, because of the emotions that stir up when one person misuses one. Well, again, the MAGA hats, the gun owners, the Ku Klux Klan people, the rounding up the Japanese, the Salem witch trial, all of those instances of the mass population being manipulated, being guided, being directed to adopt a hate mindset towards an entire group of people without fact or substance. Because I guarantee you, if you see somebody in one of those red MAGA hats and you went up and started talking to them, I guarantee you that you would find most of the preconceptions that you may have about what kind of person they are because of the hat they're wearing would be proven false. That they're not, whatever you're thinking, they're wearing that red MAGA hat, that means they're blah, 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 blah. I bet if you went up and talked to them, you'd find out that a lot of those things don't on that list don't check off for that individual. Because people are complex. Individuals are unique, and each of us forms our own opinions on things. And just because someone's wearing one of those red MAGA hats doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that individual is stupid. It doesn't mean that they're ignorant. It doesn't mean that they're racist. It doesn't mean that they want to take freedom and liberty away from anybody else. None of that stuff is relevant to the conversation. Now, could they have those kind of mentalities? It's possible. But just wearing the hat doesn't mean all of that. All of that aside, though, again, my challenge is not be more accepting of people wearing red hats. That's not the point. I want to challenge us to consider why, if we're going to embrace not just a dislike, not just a disagreement, not just a frustration, but if we are literally going to adopt I hate that, I hate you, if we're going to adopt that strong of a negative emotion, do we really understand why? Do we really understand where that hate is coming from? And don't just give a knee-jerk response. Oh yeah, I know how to hate. No, because when you do that, you are no better than the people that you claim to be hating. In fact, the great irony of this whole discussion is the number of people I've talked to that say things like, well, I'm justified in hating the people that support Trump because Trump is a proponent of hate, and by them supporting him, they also are for hate, and so it's okay for me to hate them. Well, then what you're actually saying is, it's okay for you to lower yourself to the very level of the individuals that you claim you are in opposition to. You claim you don't like them, but you've just now justified acting just like them. So at that point, you become what you say you hate. That makes no sense. So, again, my challenge, take a step back, take a deep breath, really look at why do you believe what you believe? What, especially if you're going to be so staunch and aggressive in such a negative emotion as hate. Why do you feel that? Can you actually back it up? If you can, okay, great. Live as you feel you need to. But I'll bet that 90% of the time, maybe more, you're going to find it hard to justify it. All right. Deep thoughts for the day. And with that, I'll see you next time from my front porch.